Thank you, Professor Srivastava, for linking both your personal experience and the benefits that you derived from the data set that Professor Mehta had generated, and he was managing it. Thank you very much for this. Friends, I am given 10 minutes. I do not know what exactly, why should I speak after two eminent speakers like Professor Sharma ji and also Professor Srivastava ji spoke. Anyway, let me take 10 minutes on some of the issues. Today we are staying in a post-truth scenario. I'm not talking about India, I'm talking about globally. And if you see that 2016, ever since Trump became the president of United States, normally we read about post-truth era or post-data era, that you talk about, we have deviated substantially from this, So that is one part we have reached here. But I would like to say that India, ever since India adopted a planning framework for its development, economic and social development in the 1950s, India was one of the few countries, developing countries, newly independent countries, who made a serious effort to create a data set, information-based decision making. If you see the first 5-year plans, the architect of the first 5-year plan, that is, you will find that Professor K. Raj and Pidambar Pant is considered to be the father of statistics, not education statistics, the statistics in this country. And you will find that Ravi Matai, who was an economic minister for economics, was the person who felt that there is a need for institutionalizing the collection and use of data. And that is how NCERT came into existence, So you have that. When you come to education, and also the second 5-year plan, especially when you're talking about Mahalanobis and K. Raj, etc., these were the people who tried to make use of the data for economic and social development. That made a lot of difference. And when we come to education, the surveys and data started with the 1956 when NCERT started its first survey. And every 5 years, NCERT used to do a bring survey. That is the first instance we started knowing about where schools are located, where schools are to be provided. That's a great contribution that NCERT tried to do in the 1950s and in the 1960s. And why I'm saying 1960s is that in the 1970s, NCERT started another set of survey of educational research by M.B. Butch. There was a series of surveys that were conducted. That was also another survey or providing information for decision making in the process of education. And I should say that this nowadays NCERT is not conducting that survey. NCERT is conducting perhaps NAS survey rather than the facility survey that it used to conduct. But that surveys certainly helped a lot in terms of planning education, in finding the locations of educational institutions at that point of time. It was in 1989-90 that NIEPA initiated a process by which NIEPA said that state should not be the unit for educational planning. It should be the district. And district emerged because our slogan at that point of time, which is valid even today, there are educationally backward districts even in educationally advanced states, and there are educationally advanced districts even in an educationally backward states. So the decision-making process should move away from the state. Till that time, what was known as educationally backward states, non-educationally backward states, most of the decisions were centered around that, and we moved away from that to the district level. And NIEPA played a very crucial, important role, perhaps in a way we conceptualized that, From that time onwards, the information base and information system that needs to be propagated and facilitated, we thought that it should be the district, because this was a history of 1986 policy where it was stated that district boards of education will be created. That was the basis on which the planning should have taken place. But district boards of education did not take place, but NIEPA continued with its efforts towards creating districts as the basis for educational planning. And that is the time in the early 90s that we started talking about district primary education, which Professor Mehta already mentioned about it. And what is important is that this DISE data that you're talking about, which was headed by Professor Mehta for a fairly long period of time, which made substantial contribution. The transition is from PMIS in 92-93, to DICE in 96-97, to U-DISE at a later stage, you know. So this transition is very substantial in terms of expanding its scope, its horizon, and also the use of this data at different levels, you know. So what I feel is that one of the important dimensions of this data set, what is not usually referred to, is that it's a demand generated data set. To start with, the PMIS was a generation, was a request that we want to know how the project is progressing, to what extent project activities are carried out, to what extent they are not carried out, etc. And this is an extension. Instead of supply generated data collection and data provision, it is a demand generated data collection and provision that you find, and that is why its use is also very substantial. And I am very happy that there is no other person who has handled DICE data for such a long period of time, and there is no other person who has exploited in the positive sense the data the way that Professor Mehta has done. And there is no other person who has published more articles and brought out more publications on the basis of DICE, you know. DICE has become almost inseparable from Professor Mehta, and that is the way Professor Mehta contributed to this. And it was a great honor for NIEPA too in 2012 when this was accepted as the official data source for NIEPA. Friends, I would also like to say that one point which needs to be highlighted, Professor Mehta touched in passing. In 1980s, when we were students and when we were lecturers here and giving lectures in educational statistics, etc., there used to be 3 volumes of data that used to come. Education in India Volume 1, Education in India Volume 2, and Education in India Volume 3. The first used to be on institutions and enrollment. Second used to be on the student passing out, etc., results. And the third one used to be finance. And there is not even a single publication which was not at least 5 years old. And financial data was at least 7 to 8 years old. So India was used to a system in education planning whereby we depend upon only the outdated data. Outdated data was the main source of all our planning purposes in NIEPA. And sorry, not NIEPA, in India, you know, that used to be the pattern. Why I'm making this point is that it's to be highlighted that when we moved to U-DISE, it is most up-to-date data that are available. Today's planning is based on today's data. You know, this is we have traveled miles and miles. We have traveled in our journey to make that. You know, so and that credibility and credit for that goes to NIEPA, and certainly Professor Y.P. Agarwal, who initiated these data sources, and Professor Mehta, who continued with that. You know, under his guidance, it has become much larger in size, and also computerization process that has taken place and the way that data collection and analysis are taking place are substantially important. So therefore, I feel that this contribution is a singular contribution, not only to any particular government agency, but the whole country and for the whole educational progress and development that we are talking about today, you know. And I am very happy that this is brought together in one place. And also there is references. What is also interesting and exciting is the fact that once you go to read this, you know, I have got an email version of the document, and if you click into the link, you are in a position to get, if you want to know more details, you know, get into that. And this will be a good contribution to be used by many researchers and also policymakers, not only researchers but also policymakers in the years to come. And I am very happy that NIEPA is instrumental in releasing this book, and we are instrumental in facilitating NIEPA's Professor Mehta's continuation in NIEPA, and all the help and extended by different vice-chancellors and heads of departments at different points of time to ensure that he is coming out with good publications. So this is a publication, most of the things in one place, but he has been at it, he has been writing about it, and his articles becomes a very good source for making informed decisions in education. Thank you very much.
Thank you.